All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Thank y'all so much for coming over, man. Got this video here. It says 50 Cent reacts. Jay-Z was lucky DMX didn't shoot him that day. You know, when I think about the industry and a lot of these artists that seem to go against the grain, they ain't here no more. We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
We met battling. That's how we met. We was in the Bronx in the pool hall. After that battle,
And just know sometimes they play little music clips, little short clips. I try to leave them in. If not, I have to edit them out. So
he went to like a show. He got on stage. Jay-Z, where you at?
Before Rock Nation, champagne deals, and billionaire boardrooms, Jay-Z had a problem. The problem was named DMX.
Boom, boom. When that said, Jay wasn't lying. Everybody that was on that tour at that point in time was like, we could just pack our and go.
A Yonkers street soldier who didn't just rap, he bared his soul like a weapon.
No. Dripping sweat. They going crazy. In between songs, he can't even hear what he's saying because they screaming.
In the late 90s, backstage at a Def Jam event in Manhattan, the tension between the two nearly exploded. This would later prompt 50 Cent to say, Jay was lucky DMX didn't shoot him that day. This was a standoff rooted in street code, betrayal, and power, and what happened that day was buried for years. Until now. Chapter 1. The Battle Before the Beef. Early 90s.
Moves is made. Hey, that's just how it is.
Before the platinum plaques, before the boardrooms and brand deals, in the heart of the Bronx, inside a dim, unventilated studio filled with reel tapes and bootleg Redman posters, two of New York's newest MCs faced off for the very first time. The year was 1994. The streets were cold, crack still ruled corners, and hip-hop was morphing from block cipher battles into big business. Jay-Z, born Sean Carter, had already been around hustling in Trent, freestyling on Jazzo's records, and moving weight back in Mercy projects. Known for his speed rap delivery and calculated confidence, he was in the room to stake his name in the underground. This was before Reasonable Doubt, before he was even a boss, just a man with bars, ambition, and a chip on his shoulder. DMX, real name Earl Simmons, came down from Yonkers, shirtless, breathless, straight off the block. He didn't come with industry clout, he came with scars, trauma, and a notebook full of rage. X had just started making noise on DJ Clue's mixtapes, and occasionally on Stretch and Babito's legendary WKCR 89.9 radio show, where unsigned lyricists went to war. But he wasn't signed, he wasn't polished, he was just dangerous.
No. Dripping sweat. They going crazy. In between songs, he can't even hear what he's saying because they screaming.
Eyewitnesses in the studio, producers, interns, even security recall the moment the cipher began. Jay-Z stepped to the mic like a tactician, calm and calculated, delivering tight multisyllabic rhymes. But when DMX stepped forward, the whole energy shifted. He growled, he barked, he didn't just rhyme, he turned the studio into a cage match. Every word felt like a warning, every bar like it had teeth.
Damn.
It was like a pit bull was in the room. X ain't just rap, he attacked, says Uncle Murda. The tape never officially dropped. There's no clean footage, but the story passed through the streets like legend. They say DMX may have edged it. They say Jay didn't flinch, but he felt it. And even though the two dapped up after the session, the tension never fully disappeared. It wasn't just a battle, it was the beginning of a rivalry built on mutual suspicion. Because to DMX, Jay-Z reeked of industry politics, of cool detachment, of not being real. And that rubbed him raw. That dude ain't give me no love when I was down. I don't forget that, DMX would say years later during a Rough Riders documentary.
We met battling. That's how we met. We was in the Bronx in the pool hall. After that battle, he went to like a show. He got on stage. Jay-Z, where you at?
Jay, for his part, never dissed X publicly, but those close to him say he saw something in DMX's eyes that day, something cold, unheated, and volatile. The Bronx studio clash would go down as one of the last true underground rap battles before both men were launched into superstardom. But that day didn't end in peace. It just marked the first round in a long, silent war. Chapter 2: Rough Riders vs. Rockefeller, 1998 to 1999. By 1998, the underground was behind them. Jay-Z and DMX had both become giants, carving out their own lanes in a rap game that was quickly becoming corporate. Jay-Z released Volume 2, Hard Knock Life, a commercial juggernaut that went
I don't know why that didn't have no sound there. Maybe the same reason. Maybe it was some music playing.
5 times platinum and pushed him into the mainstream with tracks like Can I Getta and the now iconic title song sampling, Annie. He was stepping into boardrooms, brushing shoulders with CEOs, and talking ownership long before it was trendy.
So what I'm doing?
Right.
Meanwhile, DMX had detonated onto the scene like a stick of dynamite. In May, he dropped It's Dark and Hell is Hot, a gritty, pain-soaked project that spoke directly to the streets. Just 7 months later, in December, he returned with Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, another #1 album. In 1 year, he did the unthinkable. 2 #1 albums, both multi-platinum. He wasn't just hot, he was dominating the charts with darkness, trauma, and spiritual range. DMX had become the people's champion, and he didn't need suits or strategy meetings to do it. But behind the music, tension simmered. Both men were signed to Def Jam. On paper, they were label mates. In reality, they couldn't be more opposite. Jay-Z operated with calculation, he studied the game, mastered the business, and moved with cold precision. DMX, on the other hand, was impulsive, raw, and unapologetically emotional. He didn't trust corporate politics, and more importantly, he didn't trust Jay. That distrust followed them onto the road. When the Hard Knock Life tour kicked off in late 1998, it was a monumental moment for hip-hop. Jay-Z headlined, bringing along a loaded lineup: Method Man, Redman, Beanie Sigel, and yes, DMX. On stage, they delivered some of the most iconic performances of the late 90s, but backstage, the atmosphere was icy. DMX barely spoke to Jay. Word from the crew was that X watched everyone, especially Jay, with suspicion. He didn't like the energy, he didn't like the structure. To X, the tour wasn't brotherhood, it was a chessboard, and Jay was the one moving pieces.
I was actually forced to be an artist and a businessman because when I tried to get a deal, I couldn't get a deal, so I had to create Rockefeller Records. We actually created Rockefeller Records from nothing.
Meanwhile, Jay-Z was beginning his slow rise toward executive power. With Dame Dash and Kareem Biggs Burke at his side, he was building Rockefeller into a brand, a business empire. And behind closed doors at Def Jam, execs were taking notice. They saw Jay as polished, professional, a leader who could speak both street and corporate fluently. DMX saw it too, and it made him uneasy. When Def Jam begins discussing changes in leadership, whispers started that the label was looking for a new president. At the time, Leor Cohen and Kevin Liles were already backing Jay-Z for more control. Rockefeller was proving to be not just successful, but sustainable. So when Def Jam gave Jay-Z a larger role in shaping the label's direction, DMX took it as a slap in the face. To him, Jay-Z wasn't just becoming a boss, he was becoming his boss, and that was unacceptable. DMX didn't believe Jay had earned it in the trenches, not the same way he had, not the same sacrifices. He saw Jay's rise as a threat not just to his career, but to the authenticity of the culture they both came from. He couldn't shake the feeling that Jay-Z represented the very industry machine he'd been fighting his whole life. What started as mutual respect had mutated into something else: cold silence, paranoia, quiet resentment. And when Jay-Z accepted the presidency of Def Jam in the early 2000s, the fallout wasn't just business, it was personal. For DMX, it confirmed everything he feared. And from that moment, there was no going back. Chapter 3: The Day It Almost Got Violent.
You know, I go to do the 6th album, and you know,
Jay-Z
somebody
became
else takes
president.
over. Yeah.
I remember
When he
this
first got the
clip.
job, he hit me with the call like, "Yo, dog, MH is running the building." Like, "Yo, you good?" Finish the album, shoot the video. What happened? Niggas go on vacation and...
By early 2002, the Cold War between Jay-Z and DMX had reached a boiling point. What had begun as a creative competition had evolved into something darker, territorial, political, personal. Jay-Z was no longer just an artist. He was the newly appointed president of Def Jam, the most powerful position in East Coast hip-hop. He now held the keys to the very building where both he and DMX once fought for scraps. And that's when it happened. Behind closed doors at the Def Jam offices in Manhattan, some say it was on the 8th floor in the executive boardroom, Jay-Z reportedly made a decision that crossed the line. According to sources close to DMX, Jay delayed the release of X's next album, claiming the timing wasn't ideal and the market was too saturated. It was a calculated move from a businessman's perspective. But to DMX, it was betrayal. From X's point of view, he had carried Def Jam through the late 90s. When the label was struggling, it was his albums that kept the lights on. It's Dark and Hell is Hot, Flesh of My Flesh, and then there was X, all #1 debuts, all straight from his soul. Now the same label that once leaned on him was trying to put him on pause, and worse, it was Jay-Z pulling the strings? That night, something snapped. According to insiders who were present or close enough to hear the aftermath, DMX showed up at Def Jam's headquarters unexpectedly. Shirtless, sweating, and visibly high, he bypassed security, storming toward the executive wing. He wasn't there for a meeting. He was there to confront the man he now saw as both a traitor and an oppressor. Jay-Z was reportedly already in the room surrounded by label execs, assistants, maybe a couple of Rockefeller soldiers. What happened next has been whispered about for years. DMX burst into the meeting. The energy in the room collapsed. He pointed at Jay. His voice was shaking, but not with fear. "You think you my boss? I made this label hot." Jay-Z didn't stand up, didn't yell back. Those who were there say he didn't flinch, but the silence in that room was suffocating. No one moved. No one knew if what was coming next would be words or violence. Some say DMX reached under his waistband as if to grab something. Others say he didn't need to. The look in his eyes was enough to freeze grown men. That 1,000-yard stare. The kind of quiet that only comes from someone who's seen real war, the kind that doesn't bluff. One Def Jam staffer who spoke anonymously years later claimed that security was seconds away from tackling DMX, but something in the moment shifted. Maybe it was Jay-Z's calm, maybe it was the presence of too many witnesses, or maybe X just wanted to send a message, not take a life. Whatever the truth, Jay-Z never spoke about the incident publicly, but those around him say he walked out of that room different. Alive, untouched, but changed. From that day on, Jay-Z kept his distance. In public, he was a professional, cordial even, but whenever DMX's name came up behind the scenes, there was a tension, a calculation, a quiet acknowledgement that things had come far too close to spilling over. Because that day at Def Jam wasn't just a disagreement, it was a warning. Chapter 4. DMX's record and reputation, the 30 arrests. By the early 2000s, the world had begun to realize that DMX wasn't just playing a role, he was the role. Everything he spit in the booth, every growl, every scream of pain, every bark, came from a life drenched in chaos, trauma, and survival. There was no rapper persona. There was just Earl Simmons, a deeply broken, wildly gifted man who never left the streets even after he'd conquered the charts.
Police in New Jersey are investigating claims that rapper DMX was involved in a robbery. A man says the rapper and his entourage pulled out a gun and demanded his money at a gas station.
From 1991 to 2013, DMX was arrested more than 30 times. Not a typo, over 30 arrests spanning multiple states and a wide variety of charges. And this wasn't tabloid noise.
I was trying to get through this video without pausing it because it's so long. But, when you think of like back in the day with Def Jam, man, DMX, oh man, his music in the clubs, when you're listening to his music, you get so hyped. You have, and I believe he was a great artist too, lyricist, and he like really rapped about his pain, So whenever you play around with somebody like that, with their money, and you think about everything he did to get in position, how hard he worked, it's that saying, like, when you make it, some people will say, "Oh, you done went Hollywood on me." I think that's how Jay-Z was looking at, how DMX was looking at Jay-Z. But also it's like, dude, you are in a position to make these things happen for me. So like, make it happen. It should be no hiccups, But yeah, that's crazy, man. Because I think right now they're getting ready to go into like the history of him and why he's the way he is, which I already seen in another video. I want them to get back more to the Jay-Z stuff. So we'll see.
It was cold legal fact. His life read like a rap sheet soaked in gasoline. In 1998, just months after It's Dark and Hell is Hot went platinum, he was caught with an unlicensed firearm in New Jersey. The industry was shocked. He had just arrived and already the wolves were circling. By 2000, the headlines grew louder. DMX was arrested for carjacking in Buffalo after allegedly stealing a vehicle at gunpoint. Witnesses claimed he flipped out after a disagreement, then peeled off in someone else's car. No entourage, no security, just X, angry and impulsive. In 2004, one of his most infamous incidents unfolded at JFK Airport in New York City. He was arrested for impersonating an FBI agent and attempting to commandeer a vehicle. Police say he flashed a fake badge, shouted federal commands, and tried to hijack a car right there in the terminal. When law enforcement arrived, they found crack cocaine and a firearm in the SUV he was driving. By 2007, animal cruelty charges surfaced. Authorities raided his DMX claim there was another court. DMX didn't care about rules. He didn't care about DMX with growls, because Jay-Z understood what it meant to go to war with someone who had nothing to lose, someone who had stared into the abyss and barked at it. In corporate rooms, DMX was unpredictable. In studios, he was electric, but in real life, he was dangerous. Not in the performative way rappers pretended to be, but in the way a wounded, cornered animal is dangerous. The kind that bites you whether you flinch or not. And Jay-Z, no matter how powerful he became, never underestimated that. Chapter 5: The Industry, Politics, and Betrayals, 2003 to 2008. By 2003, the scales had completely shifted. In one corner stood Jay-Z, climbing the highest ladders of both business and culture. No longer just a rapper, he had become a mogul in the making, sitting courtside with CEOs, releasing hit after hit, and building the public image of a clean, strategic powerhouse. His relationship with Beyoncé had taken off, further polishing his image. By 2006, he wasn't just running Rockefeller, he was president of Def Jam. In the other corner, DMX, still raw, still howling into the void, but now weighed down by addiction, legal chaos, and a music industry that seemed to be closing its doors on him.
How do you listen to a whole album, pick a single, shoot a video, then don't know? Okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. Then get me off the label. Now you're back rapping again.
What made it worse was that those doors were being shut from the inside, and X believed Jay-Z had the keys. From 2003 to 2006, DMX watched as Def Jam, his label, his home, slowly turned away from him. He wasn't paranoid, there were real signs. Jay-Z, as Def Jam's president, approved budgets, signed off on projects, and determined marketing priorities. And during that time, several key moments confirmed DMX's suspicions. First, the label began prioritizing younger, cleaner acts. New stars like Rihanna, Neo, and Young Jeezy received heavy backing. Meanwhile, DMX's upcoming work sat idle, sidelined by shifting agendas and internal politics. In 2006, the final straw came. DMX dropped his 6th studio album, Year of the Dog, again. Despite the title, it wasn't the triumphant return fans hoped for. Not because the music wasn't raw, X still poured out pain on every track, but because Def Jam gave it virtually no promotion, no radio push, no magazine rollout, no tour support. It felt deliberate. He didn't just feel overlooked, he felt erased, forgotten, censored, replaced. According to industry insiders who worked with both men, there were quiet moves made behind the scenes. Some projects featuring DMX were shelved. Collaborative offers were turned down. His name started disappearing from executive meetings. Even some of the DJs who once championed him began falling silent. Why? Because DMX was no longer a profitable investment. Too unpredictable, too raw, too risky. And under Jay-Z's leadership, Def Jam had shifted into a new era. Sleeker, more brand-friendly, designed for corporate expansion.
Yeah, see, because Jay-Z was trying to shake hands with all these other billionaires, because everybody always talk about how his rise to fame, how it happened, and you look at him now, but they were like, I guess a lot of people felt like he could have brought a lot more people with him, because when you look at Jay-Z and his early rap career, the stuff he used to rap about, being in the streets and selling and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it's like he's trying to play both sides of the field. But DMX for sure was a hothead, but that really sold because he spoke to a lot of other hotheads that could relate to his story back in the day. That's why DMX thrived in the industry. Or any other rapper that raps about that stuff, the struggle, just because people can relate to it. But I feel like once Jay-Z got famous, that he kind of dipped. It seemed like he kind of dipped.
and crossover appeal, there was no room for a walking time bomb. So DMX made a decision. He left Def Jam and went independent. It was a bold move, one that gave him control but also left him out in the cold. No more big budgets, no more marketing machines, no more industry protection. He began recording under smaller labels, performing in overseas clubs, releasing music with little distribution muscle. And through it all, the anger didn't fade. It festered. He felt betrayed not just by the industry, but by Jay-Z personally. Because in his eyes, they had started from the same place.
Right.
Two wolves in a rap game full of sheep.
That's what I
They
just
had
said.
battled, bled, risen. But when the power shifted, Jay didn't offer a hand. He offered silence. And DMX never forgot that.
Yeah. You know, that's exactly what I was saying. I feel like, and you know, he's not, but you know, normally you don't hear a lot of people say this. A lot of people don't like really go against Jay-Z, you know, because he's so powerful. But DMX spoke out. He went on a Breakfast Club and said what he said. Of course, you had Tupac who said things. Who else? I believe, did 50 Cent say some stuff? Yeah, but rest in peace to DMX, man. I think I listen to his music probably every day at the gym. At least 2 to 3 songs come on whatever playlist I got going. But it just sucks, man, because let me look at some of the comments here. Slippin' is a top 10 all-time rap song. I'm slipping, I'm falling. I gotta say, that song is so hard. That song kind of remind me of like when I listened to Eminem Mockingbird. Someone said Prince warned X about the industry and Jay is the industry. He knew what was up. Prince ain't here either. Yeah. Yeah, I think DMX might have came down there and in his mind, he was like, I'm gonna show this dude, but then had like a second thought, like maybe I shouldn't. I don't need this dude. That's what I be saying, man. I feel like a lot of rappers, well, back then it would have been a lot harder, but I just feel like a lot of people who feel like they need the industry, they really don't, especially today. But hey, appreciate you guys coming over and watching, man. Please like, share, comment below. Peace out.